So I'll be giving you guys a preliminary review of the Hisense U7G. These are not final findings, please do not take them as such, but I will be letting you know what I found. Essentially, picture quality is absolutely exceptional if you know what you're doing, if you have somebody calibrate your TV, but if you're somebody whipping the TV out of the box and just trying to compare, you will have horribly disastrous results, as this is one of the most inaccurate TVs I've ever had the pleasure of trying to adjust. It's extremely difficult, and there is a massive amount of work you will need to put in to get things where you want them to be. And I want to clarify that, again, you don't have to be an expert to dial in your picture to the standard that I'm talking about. I mean, you're just gonna have to really correct white balance is the thing, because white balance is very off, or at least it was on my unit. Maybe you roll one better than mine. These things do change from unit to unit. I got incredibly unlucky. There was a lot of green I had to turn down because there was just so much in the white balance. So that's something to keep in mind there. It was very inaccurate out of the box. Now, after calibration, as you guys see here, it's absolutely jaw-dropping. It is a beautiful TV with exceptional clarity. Now, I will be very honest with you, for the first time ever on a Hisense TV, because of how difficult this was to dial in for me, especially given how much green I had to deal with, and there was so much that just, it was a lot. It was a lot. It made me earn my stripes, and I think because of that, I had to try new things, and in doing so, I kind of came up with a way using the gamma calibration, and I was able to just really get so much more out of this panel than what the average person is going to be using. So the image you're seeing on the screen right now is not what the normal person will be able to take home, and that's honest. Now, if you want my settings, I'll be posting them so that you can take advantage of the settings, but just keep in mind, it's not a calibration, so you still need to figure out the white balance part. If we have a similar variance where you have a lot of green in your panel, then that might work out for you. But I'm just telling you, as far as picture settings go, this is a hard one to dial in. Now, again, once you dial it in though, it sings. I mean, like, looking at this right now blows my mind. I am so happy, like 10 out of 10, beautiful freaking picture. And honestly speaking, when you go and look at all the other options from all the other competitors, this is the only choice that makes sense. And I'm gonna say that because I've looked at LG's Nano series. That's trash IPS. Nobody wants that, right? They want you to buy OLED, right? And then you look at Sony with what? Their X80J, like, I mean, really, Samsung with their Q70A, QN60A. I reviewed the Q60A. That did not go over good at all. So your options are extraordinarily limited, and you don't really have a whole lot that you can pick from to begin with. And honestly speaking, Hisense is kind of the go-to this year. They're the only ones showing up this year really trying, and at least that's what I'm seeing right now. Everybody got way too comfortable being top dogs and relying on the reputation of Samsung, Sony, and LG to carry the I don't know, the TV market. And now they've just kind of let themselves go, right? That's what happens when you let somebody get comfortable in a relationship. They let themselves go. And the TV stuff is no different. But when we're talking about the Hisense U7G, I think it's really awesome. I did notice that there are some things, though, that they do need to work on. For example, I did notice that there is some ghosting, blue ghosting to be specific. I was playing Star Wars Battlefront 2, and I did notice that. Now, to be very honest with you, I was pixel peeping, and I was really trying my damnedest to replicate the issue and to make it happen. It does happen, but it's not something that is totally game breaking and will super take you out of the experience. So that's something that you have to factor in as well. Because, I mean, right now, as I'm looking at this trailer, there is zero ghosting. So it really is going to depend on the kind of content you're watching. I presume faster paced kind of shooter based kind of stuff will trip up a lot of things when you're having crosshairs on the screen and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'll do more testing, but that's something I did notice. But honestly, the ghosting thing, like, I've tested a couple of games now, and I've only noticed it in Star Wars Battlefront 2 specifically at 120 hertz. So I don't know why, but that is something that I did notice existing. Now, another thing I will say though is that with this particular display, it's a very hard TV, I would say, to kind of categorize, because on the one hand, they're advertising 1000 nits, and its local dimming isn't really able to handle that with the 90 zones. So I think even though you definitely are getting 1,000 nits out of this, it's just kind of like, if you want an image like what I've got here, you're gonna have to sacrifice a good bit of that in order to dial in a correct picture that looks beautiful, that blows your mind. And right now, that's what I have here because I was willing to make that sacrifice. But if you want that blistering 1,000 nits and you are not trying to compromise, it might be a little disappointing for you because the local dimming zones are just too few, right? You only have 90, and unfortunately they're not hyper aggressive. They don't get everything properly. I mean, you've got essentially medium that acts like luminosity mode. It ramps up your contrast, your highlights, gives you decent black levels. It's like the go-to mode, but then high gives you deeper black levels but opens up dynamic range at the expense of your brightness. So you really kind of have to study the local dimming to figure out how it works, because it doesn't work like traditional local dimming. It actually gave me a bit of a learning curve, and I'm not kidding. It made me earn my stripes. It kind of threw the rule book out for how local dimming should work and made me have to learn new things. So I think that's something that I found, really challenging throughout this entire process as well, so far in the early stages. Another thing that I think you guys should know about is when you're trying to adjust sharpness, that can also be a little tricky. Typical rules state that you don't want to go too much higher than a sharpness level of 10. I found myself in some cases needing to go up to like 12 and a little higher than that. And it's one of those things where, I don't know, man, sometimes you're going to have to break the rules with this TV. And I think for a lot of people, that's also going to be a little bit of a learning curve as well. Now, as far as the aspect of 120 hertz gaming, I'm still testing that. I have Gears 5 loading in the background on the Xbox Series X. I've got a bunch of games I'm going to be testing, but I will be doing that on the second channel because that is the gaming channel that we do that on. So if you want to see that, subscribe to the second channel. As far as future content on this and showing you guys more, I guess, movie kind of content and how it performs, doing comparisons, all that stuff is coming. But I just kind of wanted to give you guys an early idea of how this TV does kind of perform. And again, as you're seeing with this Horizon Forbidden West demo, it looks incredible. It's beautiful, it's well polished, it's glorious, it is. Now, I think if you're somebody that has high expectations and you're expecting a difference between the U8G and the U7G to be so big that, it needs to justify the $500, I think in some areas you will be disappointed, but one area you won't be is the black levels. I think for everybody asking me how this stacks up to the U8G, if you want black levels and an easier time dialing in the picture out of the box, get yourself the Hisense U8G, because this is really difficult to calibrate. And it's even harder to adjust than the U6G. Don't know if I've mentioned that already, because the U6G has better black levels, and I don't know, the picture out of the box was just dialed in a lot better than what I had here. So I think that's something that you should know. But honestly speaking, if you get it dialed in, it purrs like a kitten, right? It looks really good. And honestly, it's one of the stronger TVs so far this year that I've seen, despite the difficulties that you're gonna have in the early stages defeating the default picture options that you do have. You can see so much clarity, and that's the word I'm going to use to describe this TV. So much clarity that it's almost unfair for a lot of people that probably bought a different TV from another manufacturer at this price point. And that's how I feel right now. I'm pretty sure that's probably not going to change, but because I'm looking at this TV and each scene, the geometry is almost three-dimensional. And I say almost, but it's pretty darn 3D for what I'm looking at. It's incredible. Now, an area that I hope they improve on is motion. Motion is good, but it's not as fluid as I would have liked it to be, like the H9F from years prior. It is in the same ballpark as the U8G though, so if you're familiar with the motion on that, it is similar. I would say that it's slightly better than the U8G as far as motion, but it still does have some work to do. They have to work on tint. Tint is something that if you, let's say you want to add red, you're going to end up adding in too much red if you start changing just even 2. You go to R2. You're going to end up adding too much red and they're going to look pink. So, I mean, there's not enough fall off between per color adjustments, things like that. But again, now, everything that you're hearing, this is from the perspective of basically essentially a master calibrator. Like, I know my craft, and I'm really nitpicky with this kind of stuff because I know like the display stuff that I'm trying to pull out. But if you're not trying to pull out this ultra accurate, super three-dimensional image like what I've got here on screen right now, I mean, honestly speaking, I don't think you're going to care about this kind of stuff, and it's going to sound very like whiny or nitpicking to many people that honestly are rocking like maybe a 2005 old school TV, right? This is an awesome upgrade for a lot of people. I think it's going to sound really like shilly, I guess, but you'd be a fool not to for the price point that it's going to come in at right now. Like, that's my mindset where I'm at. Everything I've seen, it is a strong TV. And again, my settings are only $5 to jump in and be a part of all the settings that I put out on this channel. So I think that's also going to be like a huge benefit for those who don't have $200 to buy a colorimeter or, you know, hire a calibrator or something like that. Never mind, obviously, software costs. So I think it's a pretty decent deal, and it's a pretty fair way of getting solid picture settings, but you do have to figure out the white balance part. So again, if we have a similar variance and it lines up, then you'll be in even better luck. But, you know, everybody that's a member knows I always try to do what I can to help everybody get what they're looking for. But that's for the members. If you want to join, definitely do that, because I want you to see what I'm seeing right now. This level of clarity on the Hisense U7G. It's really, truly spectacular. I don't know if it's going to come through on YouTube, but hot damn, it looks incredible. Like, I don't know how else to say that, right? But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a pretty positive read so far, but there are some things that need work for sure. It's not flawless, and I don't want you to hear that even though I'm happy with it, it has no work to do. So that being said, I want to thank you guys so much for watching the #1 brand in honesty. If you have questions or something you want to see on the Hisense U7G or need to know, ask in the comment section down below. And as always, again, thanks so much for watching the #1 brand in honesty. And until the next video, I'll see you guys later.